Hello and welcome to Media7. To say the subject of our program tonight is polarising ain't the half of it. Its fans, and they are legion, regard it as compelling and important. Its detractors, and they are passionate, decry it as cynical and manipulative. Television that exploits tragedy for entertainment. It is this program. Sensing Murder, a show in which self-declared psychics seek clues to unsolved murder cases. The drama heightened with recreations and sharp editing.
I think it's sexual.
It was launched on Swedish TV, but was not a hit, nor was it that popular in Australia either, where, as the show's star psychic Deb Webber explains, it didn't last.
So it was taken off air a couple of years ago.
But all was not lost. The format was licensed to Ninox Films, and here it's a smash. Sensing Murder has moved from a late-night slot to early evening prime time, but not everybody likes it. Another TVNZ show, Eating Media Lunch, characterised the program, and Webber's contribution in particular, as sensing bullshit.
And it seems she can talk to dead people, even if they never existed.
A skeptic brought in by Ninox, Nigel Latter, also got a hammering.
I can't find a way to rationally explain what I saw today.
But I guess that if I took him along to a really decent magic show, that he'd say many of the same sorts of things.
Latter now tells us he wishes he'd never done the show, and he compares the skeptics who contacted him subsequently to the Taliban. No one actually says a crime has been solved by Sensing Murder's psychics. That's because it hasn't happened. And yet the producers point out that their psychics do seem to be able to come up with much about each case that does check out. The episode we'll be talking about features the award-winning investigative journalist Carol Duchateau, who has a particular interest in this case, the death of the Auckland schoolgirl Agnes Aliva'a.
On Valentine's Day 1992, the half-naked body of Agnes Aliva'a was found floating in an Auckland ditch. Agnes was just 12 years old when she died a lonely death. Tonight, two psychics will face their toughest challenge yet.
She said naked.
You know, I'm not a believer in psychics, but I'm certainly a believer in the power of the media.
Eventually, the psychics named a man already in prison for sexual assault, but it was just a name. So where does that leave us? Another journalist, Philip Matthews of The Press, put it this way.
It all boils down to this. The show is either a colossal fraud, an entertainment conspiracy the size of Watergate, or it's the most amazing and incontrovertible evidence of paranormal activity ever recorded. And it has to be one or the other. It can't be neither.
Joining us to discuss Sensing Murder are three of the people you've just seen. The producer, Ninox TV's David Baldock, the journalist, New Zealand Herald's Carol Duchateau, and the skeptic, Eating Media Lunch presenter, Jeremy Wells. Welcome to you all. David, if we could start with you, what is the purpose of Sensing Murder? What's it there for?
Well, we're looking at unsolved murders. We're looking at cases that haven't been able to be resolved by conventional methods. We're looking at cases that, by the approach we're taking, are getting prime time exposure. We insist that the first half of the show are as factually represented as we best can, with the support of the police, in most cases, to ensure that the information we give is correct. And we have taken on board, after the testing, as we say at the front of the show, psychics to try and give an insight as to what may have happened.
It's the psychics that make the difference, though, isn't it? You are looking to solve crimes.
No, we're looking at trying to give an understanding of what may have happened. There isn't any other shows, there isn't any other way of getting any exposure for unsolved crimes. And we're talking about murders, rapes that are out there. It's not our job to solve the crimes. It's our job as documentary makers to look at the surrounding information that can be gleaned in whatever form we can, to try and give a better insight in terms of what may have happened, to give that information, as we do, to the police.
Which I thought you did admirably in, say, the first half of the Girl in the Ditch show last week. I found that quite compelling. I thought what Carol had to say was fascinating. It seems like the police really slipped up. And then in the second half of the show, I saw your psychics basically repeat every known fact that had been in the first part. What's the point of that? Why not just give them all the facts and ask them to come up with something new?
Well, we're taking the psychics through their own journey. How else does an audience get any appreciation of what information they're actually coming up if they don't know the information in the first place, which is then being confirmed
but
by the
having
readings
them
of the
recite
psychics?
all those facts, you're basically, you're spending most of the show justifying the existence of the psychics, aren't you?
We're showing that the psychics are giving an insight that we can, as an audience and as ourselves, understand whether it's right or wrong.
Carol, how did you become involved with the show?
They called me, and I thought about it long and hard. Many of my colleagues at the Herald said, "Oh, I don't think you should do this." But I thought I would do it for Agnes. That case had gone largely unheralded, as you said before. The police had done almost nothing. That was the worst bit of police work I've ever had anything to do with. And these guys, they spent a long time researching it, and they gave a lot of publicity to it, and the psychics came up with a name.
So you were looking for the power of the media there?
I was looking for the power of the media.
And the psychics
yes.
came up with a name. How much stock do you place in that?
Well, I can't tell you the name, but the name of the person that they came up with is someone that could very well have been involved that night. Now, to my eternal shame, I haven't followed it up. I ought to have gone down there to the prison and tried to get myself in there, and I will try. This has kind of brought it back to my sensibility again. But it's quite possible that person was there that night.
Jeremy, you're the show's most prominent critic, and you went pretty hard at it. You upset David. What motivated you to go that hard against the show on your show?
Well, for me, I think the show is really to documentary making what WWF is to sport. It's clearly hocus pocus. As you said before, all the psychics can do is come up with exactly the same information that everybody already knows. And then because of this amazing time constraint situation which the producers place on the psychics, we get to a point where they might be close to locating the body, but oh no, look, we can't go and get that. But well, that's the only bit we don't know. Funny that. These people are clearly charlatans, and I think that people are being exploited. I think it's wrong. And I think David should apologise now.
Were you aware of the Today Tonight item that appeared to show Deb Webber communicating with people who didn't exist?
Well, we'd watched the show, and I could see how it was all going, and then we investigated a little bit more, and we found that piece where Deb Webber, people turned up with hidden cameras and made up people, the dead relatives, and Deb Webber claimed to see them, and as all psychics do, just the same old tricks. And then when she was confronted, did the same routine she does every time, which is to cry. And then, which makes people feel very sorry.
How did you find that program? You found it via Googling, did you?
Yes, we did, yeah.
So, David, why couldn't you have Googled Deb Webber's name and found that? Or did you find that item, which really appears to cast doubt on her credibility, did you find that before you employed her?
I knew about that item before we did our show.
And you went ahead?
Well, yeah, of course. As we clearly lay out at the front of the show, we do our own testing and we have our own parameters. Now, I was critical of Jeremy's show. I thought it was a very good look at some of the humours and some of the situations through the history of television. What I do question is why didn't you run the article from Target when they did a reading with Kelvin and he outed them? That would have shown that there is just as much on one side as the other as to what's really going on with the psychics.
It's the same reason for you. Poor research, really. We actually didn't know that it existed.
Yeah, well, I
didn't know that it existed. But in saying that, what happened was he saw a camera. The guy, I mean, he's got an amazing memory, I'll give him that. And he's read a lot of good books.
I can tell you in a lot of the stories that we did, you can't find the information in any books. The very first story that we came out, because we went back to the police involved. We did the research as any documentary maker would do.
You had footage from one news. Now, how could people not see that?
You say that we just regurgitate, the psychics regurgitate information that's gone out. Yes, they do. They do give us the information that we've given the research on to the audience, that's been able to verify what they are talking about has the credibility. They then go on to take us into the events and the situations that may well have happened for those victims.
We're going to have to take a break now, and we'll continue the argument afterwards. And we'll also take a look at key elements of the program, the large stretches we're asked to take on trust, and the detailed, often disturbing recreations of real crimes.